Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the season finale of the Demonland podcast. The series took a number of twists and turns, and if this was a real TV series, it would have been likened to a soap opera without the happy ending. And I'm sure that most Demonlanders, as they always do, would be calling for our axing after only one season. My name is Andy, and once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Grapevine. Good evening, Grapevine. How are you?
Good evening, Andy. The big question is, will the viewers tune in for a second season next year?
Well,
I guess.
As I always have been saying for the last 10 years, the only way is up. So hopefully we can continue that trend. And back by not so popular demand, and if one Demonlander had his way, you would have been axed too, Nasher. Good evening.
Yeah.
That's
it
a
was,
nice
it was
intro.
good to get my very first heckler. That was much appreciated. No, had so much fun last week. I thought I'd give it another go. A little bit less happy circumstances this time, of course.
Yeah, well, there's nothing much we can do about that. And as we sort of discussed, the game's been discussed to death, so we're not going to be discussing the actual game. We all know what happened, or more likely what didn't happen. But perhaps we can talk about how it made us feel. And from my point of view, I'm feeling dead inside. I was just... I was livid after the game. I didn't want to have to rely on another team to get us in there. We had a job to do, and winning would have got the job done. And unfortunately, we had to wait another day to find out our fate. And Nasher, how did you go not being actually even at the game, having to watch it on TV?
I often say on the forums that I try really hard not to take losses personally. And you know, I understand that they don't do it to us on purpose. But there was a moment, probably about 3/4 of the way through that first quarter, where I was just thinking, "You mongrels, how could you do this to us?" That was the worst weekend, and I spent the whole of Sunday watching football. I watched Essendon play Freo just for a laugh, really, just thinking, oh yeah, I might as well take a look and see what's going on. And then Freo teased us for a little while in that last quarter, and I thought maybe they might get it done. And then it was just misery watching that Adelaide West Coast game. That was just so painful. I don't think I've ever spent so much emotional energy on football in my whole life. That was just the hardest thing. And really couldn't have gone any worse in the end, could it?
No, well, I couldn't even bring myself to actually watch the game, because every time I watched it, West Coast kicked a goal. Like, I would turn it, I was watching the scores tick over and Adelaide would come back, but every time I said, oh, well, now I'll watch it, try and have some fun if Adelaide are going to win this game.
Yep.
West Coast would kick a goal, so, my typical MFC, SS, black cloud that hangs over my head, I thought, no, I can't watch this. So most of the game I watched the score ticking over, and there was one stage in the last quarter when we got to, Adelaide, a depleted Adelaide team, got to within 17 points. I thought, hey, we could be it, but the black cloud stayed.
I don't think any of us really thought that Adelaide were going to beat West Coast. It was clear on Thursday night at selection when Talia and Walker missed. So I went into the weekend thinking, if we lose to Collingwood, it's done and dusted. Forget about it. There's no Adelaide aren't going to save us. So that sort of made Saturday's performance all the more inexcusable, I think. And the double and then triple disappointment, or the double disappointment on the Sunday, was that the Essendon-Freo game was close enough such that had we maintained our 5-goal lead the week before against the Lions, instead of letting them get back in it, we would have finished above Essendon on percentage anyway. So it wasn't just the disappointment of the Collingwood game, it was the held-over disappointment from the Lions game the week before as well, which made it just as bad. And I think in the end, the percentage difference that we missed out equates to about 10 points.
Yeah.
So that should be the mantra for the next decade, shouldn't it? You know, among players on the field and from leadership players to the others. 10 points, boys, 10 points, boys. And that way they know never to take the foot off the pedal, whether it's round 21 or round 23.
Well, we said that a number of times about the Brisbane game, that we took the foot off the accelerator, and we just, you know, it's ended up costing us a position in the finals. So yeah, we had that. I knew as soon as Adelaide held back Tex and Talia, I knew, you know, we can't rely on another team to get us through this. We have to do it ourselves. And even when we lost, there were a lot of people saying, oh, you know what, well, you know, we don't deserve to be in, and maybe we didn't deserve to be in. But I didn't have the attitude. A lot of people were sort of saying, well, I hope West Coast win just to teach them a lesson. Well, you know what, I still wanted Adelaide to win. I still wanted to make the finals. I'm not one to say, well, I don't want to get in, you know, by going through the back door, so to speak. But I still would have been happy to get in that way. But, yeah, having said that, yeah, we didn't deserve it, and we didn't, you know, we shouldn't have to rely on other teams. We should get the job done. And I think going forward next year, there's two big things with what we have to do next year, and we'll probably talk about it more later, but it's you know, we've got to start crushing teams when we do get ahead, and the other things are these disappointing losses when we should win, and you can probably mark down Saturday as one of those games we should have won. Hold on, Grapevine. I think we've lost Nasher. I'm going to see if Nasher, are you there? Oh, Nasher, have I got you back?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
This thing really enjoys hanging up on me. I don't know. I did that last week too.
Yeah,
it seems to be.
I don't know what happened there.
You're just like the players, Nasher. You go missing at crucial times.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Could you hear what we were saying, or you couldn't hear what we were saying then?
I sure could not.
Okay.
I have no idea what you've been talking about.
All right. I was just saying that going forward next year, you know, what ended up costing us was this, you know, Brisbane game effectively as well. You know, so we've got to start, you know, burying teams when we're in that position. I think we can't go to sleep for quarters at a time. That's one of the big things that have got to improve, as well as beating teams we're expected to win. The two North Melbourne games, the Hawthorn game, the Freo game. All those would have, any one of those games, or even a few extra goals in any other game, would have, you know, got us through.
That's
issue,
almost
sorry.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, I think the biggest issue from the weekend was not an expectation that we'd already made it or that it was going to be easy, but more so we've spoken all year about how many games we were down and able to come back in, and we won a majority of those games. A few times we fell short, but Adelaide, St Kilda, the first time around, Carlton, Gold Coast, so many, and Collingwood the first time round too, where we were down by 4 or 5 goals and were able to come back relatively easily. And I think the boys went into Saturday's game thinking, well, it doesn't really matter what happens. All we need to do is click into gear at a certain point during the game, and we'll be able to get on top of them. And hence there was no great panic when Collingwood scored, you know, the first, what did they score, 6 goals in the first quarter?
Yeah.
And they left it too late. I mean, we didn't start playing until midway through the third or late in the third.
It's almost cold comfort to know that they can come back if they're, you know, from almost any position. I mean, they've demonstrated that this year. Not getting into that position in the first place would be a good thing to aspire to next. I guess just going back to your point, Andy, I think it really just shows that every goal matters. Like sometimes you think, you know, so-and-so missed that goal and it didn't really matter because it didn't affect the result. You know, we still won the game by 13 points or whatever. this is just this, particularly this year. All those one goal we missed, or that North game that we nearly won that we dropped, and all that, just everything mattered in the end.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the Brisbane game. That 32 points up, I knew it. We talked about it last week. We needed to bank percentage, and it came down to that, the banking percentage. Yeah, we can go on about the North Melbourne games, Freo, whatever. That one game would have got us in, and we were in the position to do it, and for whatever reason, we didn't go on with it.
Yep.
Yep, it's a harsh lesson, harsh way to learn that lesson, but hopefully we have. It
is, and you know what? I hope the players, I hope it's drilled into them. It's I don't want to be harsh about it, but I hope the players are as shattered as, I am. I don't like to bag players, but I really hope that they are as shattered as I have been. I felt the last 2 days, and we can say it's only a game, but I live and breathe this stuff. Obviously, my family comes first, but the Melbourne Football Club is my family too, and I hope that the players are shattered all off season long. I hope they hate watching the finals this year as much as I'm hating listening, looking at anything finals related. It's killing me, and I'm sure it's killing you guys as well.
It's funny, Jordan Lewis was on AFL 360 last night and was talking about and said that he'd spoken to the players and they're shattered. And I thought it was funny, given all the grief that Paul Roos used to cop for not buying in, and he had Lewis saying they're shattered rather than we're shattered. But of course, if you've won 4 premierships, missing out on a final series probably isn't shattering
he's probably
at this stage of the journey for Lewis.
He's probably going to enjoy having a September off.
Yeah, that's right.
But no, I hope that they're shattered. I hope they feel like I felt. Someone said in a thread that they were glad that the players had to watch the final quarter of the Adelaide game and feel just as helpless as us supporters feel, and not being able to have any impact on what happens, the result or anything like that, and maybe just feel a little bit like the supporters feel for a little bit. I hope they feel that and get a bit of fire in their belly for next year, because we'll remember that feeling every time they put the boots on, every time they put the jumper on. And I hope they feel a little bit like I feel, because I'm never going to leave the club. I'm not, one that's going to, burn my membership in the microwave. I'm here for forever, so I hope they feel a bit of what I felt.
Yeah, look, I'm not normally one. I got to say, for me, it's a little bit of a stretch too far to hope that they hurt, but that's just my personal view on the world. I do certainly agree that I hope that this motivates them, because it has to, doesn't it? It's just proven that you got to be better.
Well, it's a waste. If it's a waste otherwise, isn't it?
That's right, exactly. Yeah. Got to be able to take a lesson out of it. Exactly.
So is all right. I'll ask the question again. We've asked it a number of times this year. Was season 2007 a failure in your eyes? And I know we improved. We won more games. We started to show improvements. We were very competitive in most of the games. But on the whole, is not making the finals a failure? Is that a big enough barometer to say that the season's a failure? Grapevine, I'll throw to you first.
No, season's a success in my eyes. If you switch the order of the games around and put a Collingwood loss a month back, and have us, say, beating Gold Coast by 40-odd points in the last round but missing out on percentage, then it'll be sort of a different equation to how we're feeling at the moment. So I've always said that it wasn't measured on finals, and I think there's no doubt that we've improved this year. So
that's a very
and a substantial enough improvement on the year before to make it a success for me.
Well, I didn't look. I must be a glass is half empty kind of person, and you must be a glass is half full. Because when you put it that way, I like that way of thinking. I might have to. I might need some more therapy to help me start seeing the world through your eyes.
Don't get me wrong. I'm shattered, and my main feeling, and I haven't felt this in 40 years or 38 years of following footy. I felt like the players broke the trust of the supporters, that they broke faith with us. And I'm not one that thinks that there's any particular bond between players and supporters or any kind of connection, but I just felt like for the first time ever that we were owed better than that. It's not something I usually feel. So, a real sort of breakdown for me.
We'll go back to that point in a second about the disconnect between the players and the club, because there was a thread about that. But I'll ask Nasher, was the season a failure in your eyes?
Look, I almost have nothing to add to what Grape said. I agree entirely. And I said last week, we touched on this point last week when you asked the question: if we lose, will it, and we miss the finals, will it make the season a failure?
Yeah.
And I touched on the point that, we lost the game. In the end, us making the finals or not came down to the result of the West Coast and Adelaide game. So it makes it. And the other thing is, footy supporters do this all the time. You see this around all the time. We get hung up on the last thing that happened.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate that we have to go into this summer now with that darn game as our lasting memory, because that was just the whole thing was a train wreck. But I'm trying to be careful not to let it taint my view of the whole season. But that being said, it is still a little bit too raw for me to be able to say it's okay. I forgive you. The season was good. Because I'm still a little bit upset about that.
The best example of what you're saying is Tom McDonald, who had a great year, and yet his last 3 kicks for the season were from absolute nightmare territory. So, you're right that the final impression is sort of the one that will stay with us, unfortunately, over the summer. So that bitter taste is going to be around for a while yet.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. So there was a thread on Demonland just about the disconnect between supporter, players, perhaps coaching staff, and the supporters. And there was one post on there that I might read a bit of it, because I sort of agree wholeheartedly with it. And we talked about we brushed on, how Goodwin is one that doesn't like to talk about the past, in particularly the records we had against North Melbourne and not having made the finals. And I can see what they're saying, what his point of view is, but I still think it is quite important, from the supporters' perspective, because for us it is very important that we've been treated like a ragdoll by one club in particular for so long, and there were a couple of other clubs that we've finally got over those hurdles with. But this is a post by Demonland post. What's his name? Praha? Is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
He says, this is, I think, part of why ignoring the past records entirely can be dangerous. Ignoring the fact that the club hasn't beaten North for a decade is fine for the players, but the club and the fans have to put up with being bullied by North. Saying the record doesn't matter is a little insulting to fans who have had to put up with it. It's the same with finals. Why wouldn't you use not playing finals for a decade as motivation? I think Goodwin has learned some hard lessons this year, and a lot of it has to do with understanding what the club has gone through and why fans react the way they do. When you say losing streaks or whatever are irrelevant, what you're saying is that the playing group is separate from what the club more broadly stands for. The playing group, regardless of whether they have been there for 1 year or 2 years, has to take on the baggage of 17 straight losses to North, or 11 years without finals, or 50-plus years without a flag. If breaking those droughts aren't used as extra incentive, it's no wonder the team has put up with performance it did on Saturday. We went from one extreme with Neild and Schwab and obsessing over the past to Roos and Goodwin trying not just forget but completely ignore the bad. The team will never move forward until it acknowledges the fact that it's been embarrassing for a decade. I found Goodwin's messaging about the North drought to be a massive disconnect between coach and support base, and I have to assume it's the same between playing group and fans. If I found out that the club's final drought wasn't mentioned in the lead-up, it would make me feel like my weight and pain has been pointless. Simply saying we need to win to make finals isn't enough. Are you going to take it on and guide this team to its first finals in a decade? Then he goes on, this is undoubtedly a disconnect between club and fan in this regard. Goodwin and co need to take on these droughts by the balls and acknowledge and understand why they hurt the supporter base so much. Don't tell me the record against North is irrelevant. It is effing relevant because it's a goddamn competition and an opponent has bullied the club and its fans for a decade. Effing own up to it. To me, that is the biggest gauge of measuring any potential disconnect. I know, Grapeviney, I know you said when we were talking about this a while back about the North Melbourne loss, I think you agreed with Goodwin that we should, forget about it. But I don't know. I don't agree. I think we need to acknowledge that part of it.
Yeah, but what's to be... I don't know why you'd want to burden Clayton Oliver and Christian Petrarca with the baggage of 17 years of failure or whatever it is, 17 games of failure or 50 years of failure. I think Praha's missing the point. It's not about fans and us being bullied or the club being bullied. It's only about what happens on the field. So the focus has to be just on winning today. And I don't think that it's the coach's job or the player's job to carry the club's history with them every time they step out onto the field.
I don't think they need to get tattoos of it, let's never forget. But I don't think it should be completely ignored. I don't know. Maybe because it's just because I'm so burdened by it that I'm projecting that onto the players. But
that's the supporters' lot.
Wrong.
I mean, that's sport. That's the point of it. You don't want the players being burdened with that kind of stuff. That's the stuff. That's our lot in life.
But I want it goes back to I want them to be hurting about this. Should they not be hurting about not making the final? Should they go on their overseas trips? I'm not saying they can't have an off season and enjoy themselves in the off season, but I want them in the back of their mind that it's bothering them. I don't want them to go into next season and it's all. Well, I
agree with you totally, but you want them to go into next season wanting to win the premiership, not wanting to break a drought with North Melbourne.
Well, it's part of the same thing,
No, they're not the same thing, and I think, everyone keeps talking about the North drought and...
well, it's not just the North drought, it's the finals drought and it's the premiership drought. It's all... It's gaining respect, and we're the laughing stock of the AFL at the moment. There's been so many memes online about this. We are the laughing stock at the moment. I want to gain some respect.
You can't expect Clayton Oliver to feel the burden of missing out on 10 years of finals when he hasn't. I'm only expecting Clayton to feel the burden of missing out this year. It's unreasonable and unwarranted to expect him and others they haven't been playing for 50 years, They're not responsible for 1965 to 2016.
Not suggesting they're responsible, but I don't know.
Well, but it's just, if you try to force them to carry that burden, then it's going to be a false carrying because he wouldn't feel it. He's only been at the club for 2 years. So I think it's just asking for too much and supporters projecting their feelings onto the players.
Jordan Lewis made a comment on 360 along these lines months and months ago. The question was, how long do do the players feel the pain of a loss before they move on? And his answer is you have to move on as quickly as you can because otherwise it affects your next performance. Now, I would hate for, like you said, Grape, a player like Clayton Oliver to be going into a North Melbourne game going, gee, like we haven't beaten North Melbourne for 2 decades or however long it's been. It feels like it's been that long. But, gee, I better put extra pressure on myself to perform this week because the fans hurt because we haven't beat North Melbourne. Like I think performance of elite athletes is so delicate, and we've seen that with our own performance. Like it doesn't take much for us to capitulate, and it's not just us, by the way. It's just that we suffered the worst consequence of it. The performance is so delicate that you don't want players to have to carry a burden that puts that at risk.
Yep. Good point.
Yeah.
Capuchas, I hope I've said your name right, in the chat room has said Goodwin's challenge is for them to bring intensity of effort. If it's not to be the club's historical baggage, fine, but he needs to be able to get their nostrils flared when it's important.
Yep.
And perhaps that's the right way to go. But maybe it's just I'm feeling so down at the moment that maybe I'm just taking it out on the players a bit too much. And yep.
And we don't know what Goodwood said in the
we're
league.
all hurting,
we don't know
you're amongst friends here.
We don't know what happened. So
yeah, well, that's right. I'm not in the rooms before the game, so yep.
And the thing is, the other thing is, like I said before, I'm pretty sure they don't do it on purpose. Like no player ever goes out there going, we'll just take it easy against Collingwood. We'll make the finals. I don't take it personally because I don't think it is. That's basically it.
Yeah, look, I don't think they would do that. Now, there was a report, and I don't know how true this is. There was a sledging incident in the St Kilda game, an alleged incident, and this was from the Herald Sun, so take that with any amount of grains of salt that you can find. Demons' ultimate sledging backfire. A few big mouths at Melbourne have been forced to eat some serious humble pie. After missing the finals in disastrous fashion at the weekend, it has emerged that the Demon players were very confident they would be taking part in September. In the third quarter of their clash with St Kilda earlier this month, some sledges were directed at the Saints along the lines of, "What are you blokes doing in September?" Fast forward a couple of weeks and both the St Kilda and Melbourne players are doing the same thing in September. Nothing. If true, what do you think? Is it just part and parcel of the game, a bit of sledging, or were the players a bit full of themselves and maybe they thought that they'd turn up and make September, particularly at that time, that juncture?
Look, it's a storm in a teacup for me. Who cares? I don't care anyway. What I think is, when like the whole point of a sledge is to psych the other team out, not to pump yourself up.
Yeah.
So the basis of that sledge would be, it's not so much we're making finals, it's you're not making finals. It's focused on the opposition. I don't think it's a sign that they got ahead of themselves, but who knows.
Okay.
Couldn't agree more.
I'll take this opportunity to mention what I've neglected to mention is our phone number. If you want to join in on this session of trying to get some therapy and cure your own mind, 039016 3666. That's 039016 3666, or Skype us Demonland 31, where we'd love to hear from Demonlanders. A few of you did say you would try to call in, so we'd love to hear from you, and perhaps you can heal your soul because our souls are
we've got an update from the board, and congratulations are due to Michael Hibbard,
yes,
who has been selected in the All-Australian team.
Oh well, that I knew was going to happen. I couldn't see him missing out. And congratulations, Michael Hibberd. What a fantastic asset he's been to the club.
It looks like Nev has missed, unfortunately.
I would have thought that too, as my prediction a few weeks ago.
And you wouldn't think Jeffy Garlett's going to make it, so Hibberd will be it.
Now, we can quickly talk, since we're talking about All-Australian, there was one player who did not make that 40-man squad, and were you surprised that Clayton Oliver was a glaring omission in that squad? Grapevine.
Yeah, I am. His numbers stack up against all the others. Seen comparisons with Bontempelli, with Treloar, with Ross, Scully, and better than all of them. I think what kept him down was
some incidents.
Not scoring many goals, not as much metres gained as perhaps some of the others. But when it comes to clearances, contested possessions, total possessions, tackles, disposal efficiency, he's right up there with the best of them. So a definite omission for mine.
Is there a chance that he was left out because he's unpopular in the AFL world at the moment?
I was going to bring that up. I love a good conspiracy theory, and I'm all for that.
Because I think it taints people's view of him as a player. I reckon that's been a factor, to be honest. I'm not normally one for conspiracy theories, I might add, but that one I'll give a little bit of time for.
There's no doubt that issue at the Carlton game, and no doubt, but that's my opinion that Carlton game, that incident, and the perhaps the in inverted commas the diving incident might have been frowned upon by the selectors, and maybe that.
I prefer to refer to it as him being punched in the face.
Yes,
myself.
Yes, he fell down. How it happened, we'll never know.
Yeah.
But congratulations, Michael Hibberd. What a pickup he's been. And I did a little poll on Facebook this week about the best first year at the Demons players, and the four players that I chose: Michael Hibberd, Jordan Lewis, Jake Melksham, well, that's a technicality, but it is his first playing year at the D's, and Mitch Hannon. And guys, can you guess who won that one?
I'm guessing Hibberd.
Hibbo
Yes.
would have smashed it in, surely.
So we had 445 votes, 312 were for Hibberd, 101 were for Jordan Lewis, 16 were for Melksham, and 15 were for Hannon. So it's quite conclusive that Michael Hibberd was our best first year at the Demons player.
Gee, I would have thought Melksham had a much better season than Lewis.
Well, I have a theory on why Lewis might have got more votes, and you're not so familiar with Facebook, Grapevine, but Nasher, you might be. You know how we have reactions. You've got the thumbs up, you've got got the heart, you've got the shocked face and the laughing face. So I did a little graphic with the four players in four quarters, and the thumbs up with Lewis, the heart for Hibberd, and so on and so forth. And well, the default is usually the thumbs up, and Lewis was the thumbs up. So some people are just lazy and might have just clicked like just to like the concept or whatever, and maybe that's why Lewis got a few extra votes over. There was one sort of extra step you have to do, and people are inherently lazy. So perhaps that was a reasoning behind that. All right. So we talked about the sledging. Just going over my notes here. Did you boys happen to see, and you would have, I'm sure, Nathan Jones's media conference? Anything stand out for you there, or it's pretty stock standard?
Didn't watch.
Didn't watch. Couldn't watch or
Not interested.
Yeah.
And look, you're damned if you're doing, damned if you don't. There's been equal criticism for having the press conference and just as much criticism for the club not saying enough. So
yeah.
The fact is, words can't satisfy any of us. Some want to hear them, some don't. It doesn't really matter, does it, in the end? Then
some people were saying, well, why wasn't Jack Viney there? And, why wasn't the coach there? And I don't know, the club can't do anything right in some supporters' eyes. As you said, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
My whole coping mechanism has been to just put my head in the sand and just pretend the whole world disappeared. To be honest, I haven't. I saw snippets of the Jones press conference, but to be perfectly honest, I find him boring to listen to at the best of times. I don't. Like you said, Grab. I don't care. Not worried about what anyone has to say, but it is funny your point on being damned if you do, damned if you don't. It was pretty funny on one of the threads during the week. After the match, like I say, on Saturday evening before Sunday had happened, people were complaining about there was some report going around that they were pretty happy in the rooms and weren't too worried about it, and then it turned out after a bit of toing and froing and everybody expressing their outrage that the boys weren't outraged, turned out that actually wasn't true at all. Yeah. And then people started talking about how hollow and upset, that it was hollow that they were upset about it. Well, do you want them to be upset or not? It's I think sometimes we just want to be angry no matter what happened.
Yeah, well, I must say when I heard those reports that they weren't upset, I was very upset at that. But I will say that when I heard that they were upset, I was then happy that they were upset. So it is what it is. We were going to talk about next the BNF. I think, in my mind, there's it's a 2-horse race, but I think that one of the horses is a lot stronger. I think Clayton Oliver's going to win by a length, and then coming up behind him will be Michael Hibberd, and then Daylight in between them and the next person. Your thoughts, Nasher?
Agree. It's pretty hard to see who else could win it other than Oliver. He really sort of didn't really have any quiet period through the year. Hibberd, I think for a start he missed the beginning of the season.
Yeah, 3 games.
And he, I felt his influence fell away a bit towards the end of the season. I don't think his probably last 5 games hit the same standard as his first 5 games. So I think Oliver by length of the straight.
I think Hibberd had some good moments in some of those games, but then he had some terrible moments as well. I think some of his disposal on the weekend was some of the worst I've seen from him. But on the whole, fantastic year.
Yeah.
And deserves that All-Australian nod.
Will Nev finish 3rd?
Well, let me go to our unscientific Demonland Player of the Year. I don't know. He might, because it depends how the coaches award the votes that they give, and he always sort of does his job. So if they're giving votes based on jobs that players get, because he might not get as many possessions, but he certainly does, all those things that need to be done. He came 5th in our Demonland Player of the Year. So it was Oliver, Hibberd, Jones, McDonald and Jetta.
I think that, I know there hasn't always been a good correlation between Demonland Player of the Year and the actual BNF, but I think
nor should there.
we're looking, I guess we're all biased as supporters, but I think that's actually not a good sign for Jetta polling high in the actual BNF because Demonlanders love him. Who doesn't love Neville Jetta? Like he appears in votes all the time. So I think the fact that I think he's likely to poll lower in the real thing than he does on Demonland. But well, I guess we'll see. I could be totally full of it, but that's just where how I see it. I think. I think supporters love him more than the club does sometimes.
Yeah, they definitely do. I reckon I could put a picture of Neville Jetta now on Facebook and have like 400 likes by the end of the end of tonight. He's just he's a special guy, good player.
One of the the thing is that he always he's always at 100%. Very, very consistent player, and that's probably why the fans love him so much. That's why I love him. And
probably the fact that he doesn't get a lot of recognition, and we've spoken about this on the Demonland podcast before, that he doesn't get... Well, he gets... Whenever they talk about him, they always talk about, how he's so underrated, but they keep mentioning his name, but keep saying that he's underrated. And it's time that they stop saying he's underrated and start talking about him, because they do talk about him a lot these days. So, yeah, give him a nod for an All-Australian, please.
We can only judge from the outside, but someone like Sati could probably fill us in a bit better. But it seems from the outside that he just looks like he's really professional in his preparation, and the way he sort of looks after himself and prepares for the game. Nev, he just looks like the type of guy that would tick every box and then plus some, just to make sure that he's in absolutely tip-top condition come game day. So, I'm sure that's part of the equation.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so BNF, there probably won't be any surprises there. What other awards do they have on the night? They've got stuff like, there's no way we'll be able to work out best team man, because it's probably Neville Jetta. Neville Jetta always gets some award there. Best first-year player, does that include... Is the best first-year player just first year at the club player, or is that first year as in first year a footy player?
I think it. I'm not actually. I'm not sure, but it'd be pretty cheeky if that counted. Like if Michael Hibberd won that, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
No.
So if not Hibberd, who gets that one?
Best actual first year, Mitch Hannon for me.
Mitch Hannon. Yep.
Well, I was looking. We didn't have any rising stars this year. We had no one retiring. Well, there might still be, like a Garland might retire, but none of the sort of main group of, the first 22. There's no retirees from there. We're sort of in that, that period. We only had. Who was a debutant this year? We had Maynard, like being a first year out of first year. Smith, yes, he was.
Two Smiths.
Yes,
both Smiths.
Well, is the other Smith? He's a mature age as well, isn't he?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. Now I think that might be about it.
Yeah. So
Yep.
Yeah. So the two Smiths, Maynard and Hannon, are the only contenders for that.
Yep. Both Smiths, unfortunately, spent most of the year on the sidelines. So.
Maynard played the one game. Yes, it has to be Hannon, really.
Mitch Hannon's got his hands all over that.
Well, who are you looking forward to of the injured players? Are any of them likely to be, best 22 next year, or sort of best 26 players? Like, is Vandenberg? Do you think there's room for him in the team and to add value? I was always a big fan of his. He always crops up for goals. I'm looking forward to refreshing my memory with him, to be honest. He's sort of you forget after a while, but I know he's a big lad. I can't wait to see what he can deliver. Who else did we? Weren't too many others that spent the whole season out injured, other than Cole Garland. Yeah, well, I don't think Cole Garland will get back into the team. I don't know. I got the feeling last year that he was on the outs even before the injury.
I think anything that you get out of Cole from now forward's a bonus. I've pretty much written him off, and that comes from a point of view of I'm personally a fan. I like him, and I've really felt like he was one player who, he sort of stuck by us when all his mates were leaving. And, sort of seemed to take the hard times pretty hard. So it would be good to see him come up and get going again. But I don't think he will. I think he may retire at the end of this year, or he may see out the last year of his contract. But it's hard to see him getting back in the side, isn't it?
Yeah. It'll be good to see this Tim Smith. I was impressed with a little bit I saw of him. He's a big boy, so it'd be good to see if he can crack it into the team. So
Declan Kilt is the other one that finished the year on a good note. Didn't crack it for a senior game, obviously, but he seemed to be getting close, given the raps that he was getting from both Justin Plapp and Simon Goodwin. So good luck to Deck for next year.
Yeah, well, he was he the one promoted to the senior list? I think they had a deadline that if they were going to play him, and if we did need to play him because of injuries or something, they needed to promote him to the senior list. Let's hope he gets his chance next year. Now, do you want to go through... We had in the notes player review and ratings. Are we going to go through the list? Is that something you'd like to do? We can perhaps say a little bit about them.
Yeah, I'm happy to go with the flow.
All right.
Let's give them a quick score out of 10 and a comment or two.
All right, so are we going... What's the best way to do it? We probably should have discussed... Should we just go by number? Because that's what I've got.
Let's just count up from the unluckiest player on the list.
Yes.
Who's probably doesn't get a score but gets an asterisk next to his name. Poor Jesse finished with a bloody hammy the other day, just to add to all the other challenges he's faced this year.
Do we know how bad that hammy was? Would he have played this week, or was it a real hammy? We don't know.
He came out. He was running around after half time. He came back out and looked like he was going to play again, but then went to the bench. So perhaps it was just a bit of a tweak rather than a full 10.
Yeah, I got the impression they were just being conservative, but I guess who knows? We'll never know now, will we?
That's right.
Have you ever seen a player have to come back from so many things in one season? I can't think of a situation anything like what he's been through this year. So, he sort of had to keep coming back from the dead numerous times. Showed great resilience. He looked $1 million in that game against Brisbane. Honestly, I think that was as good a season as you could have under the circumstances.
Yep, agreed.
I'm just trying to find, while we're talking about Jesse Hogan, the D Army, which is our cheer squad, posted a thing on Facebook. The Demon Army, they're called. Let me just bring it up, and if they've deleted it, I might not talk about it. It was an incident. Yes, they haven't deleted. So the Carlton Cheer Squad posted on. I'm not sure if you're aware of this because I didn't see it on Demonland. I was going to post it, but then I just forgot. I just remembered it now when we're talking about Jesse. The Carlton Cheer Squad posted something on Twitter, I believe, and then later deleted it. And this is the Carlton Cheer Squad. I think it's their official Twitter page. Dear at Melbourne Football Club, that's karma for Hogan's cheap shot on Rowe and Lewis's cheap shot on Cripps. Suck shit. Love from all Carlton fans. And with an animated gif of Mr. Bean giving the bird. And I just thought that was disgusting. Very low, cheap shot by an opposition cheer squad who effectively is a representative of a club.
Well, they had to apologise and they deleted it.
Yeah.
And they put out an apology tweet, which got quite a bit of mockery because it was signed off by the Carlton Cheer Squad Leadership Group. And I think people were laughing at the fact that even cheer squads have got leadership groups now. So,
well, I wouldn't laugh too hard. We had someone from our cheer squad leadership group on this very podcast. So I think they do. The cheer squads, they do a good job, and we thank.
Well, they do. They've got a lot of people to organise,
yeah.
So we'd never knock our own cheer squad.
Yes, but the Carlton cheer squad we can mock all day and night. But...
Well, they drive around in that bloody twisted piece of hovercraft metal that burns up the MCG, so we hate them with a passion.
Yeah. Well, I just thought that was a disgusting thing to say. So, yeah, that's that. So, Jesse, Asterix, that's all what can you give? We saw some glimpses of brilliance from him and, guy went through a tough year, so hopefully he can, put, some of it's very hard to put behind him, but at least the injuries, hopefully he can overcome them and, be raring and firing to go like he was at the beginning of this year. All reports at the beginning of the year was that he'd had a fantastic pre-season, so 2018, bring it on. Nathan Jones, number 2.
Look, he had a good season. I guess I come back to my point of the last thing you remember being what sticks in your mind. The last thing you saw being what sticks in your mind, that is. That he was pretty disappointing on the weekend, I thought. Look, he's consistent. He seems to consistently deliver at a high standard, and I think his BNF result will reflect.
Gravani, anything to add?
No, I agree. I think he's had a pretty good year and played at a pretty high level for most of it. So agree that he'll finish, top 5 in the BNF probably, and that's where you expect your captain to be. And
missed a number of games as well for injury. So
first time in a while.
Yeah. Christian Salem. I'll just add, I was shocked that I thought he got dropped obviously, and that sort of shocked me. I would have thought a guy like Christian Salem would be the last person that would get dropped from the team. In my mind, he'd be one of the first ones picked every week, but he had a bit of a form slump and found himself in the twos, and looking for better from him next year. Your thoughts, guys?
Yeah, much better in the first half of the year than the second.
Yeah.
Still haven't really seen the best of him yet, I don't think.
I think one of the things that we've got to remember is that he is one of a lot of players who are still very young. Now, I know that's people see that youth as an excuse and so forth, and fine. But I was having a look through the players who played in our last game, and I counted something like 8 players who were in the 30 to 50 game range. Now that's still a significant portion of the team, and you still can't really expect players in that range to have developed full consistency yet. And Salem's in that basket. Players like him through the Hawthorn dynasty, of the last 5 years or whatever, would have been in and out of the side all the time. So I don't think we should be too concerned that he fell away a bit at the end of the year. But yeah, I do agree he does need to go up a level next year. But I think
funny,
form slumps are to be
guys,
expected.
It feels like he's been around for probably longer than he has. And part of that is because he's battled injury, so we just haven't seen a lot of him in the time that he's been there. So you're right in terms of that.
Yep. He's 22 years of age.
Yep.
But it does feel like he's been around forever, doesn't it?
Yep.
Does anyone want to tackle the next one, number 4, Jack Watts?
Well, Jack doesn't want to tackle. Boom, boom. Sorry about that. Jack was okay on the weekend, I thought. Definitely far from the worst. Not a great game, but a bit like Salem, had a really good, probably better than Salem, had a pretty good start to the year and middle part of the year where he peaked for a few games, but then we all know that he got injured and the issues after that. So
he wasn't the same player when he came back from injury. There was something, whether he was still injured, whether he was brought back too quickly, I don't know what it was, but there was something different about him.
Look, he attacked the ball in the air in that last game, which I think is one of the main things that we want to see from him. But yeah, isn't it frustrating that we're still having this conversation?
Yeah, I thought after last year's season, I thought that was being put to bed. I thought this is a new Jack Watts, and this is finally the Jack Watts that I've been telling all my mates is the Jack Watts that I knew would arrive. And unfortunately, after the injury, sort of was back to the old ways. And let's, touch wood, he'd come back next year with a bit of fire in his belly.
Yep.
Christian Petracca, shows glimpses of greatness. I just would love to see more of it. You can see what he does when he's got the ball sometimes is just incredible. I'd love to see more of it for 4 quarters and,
Again, he goes into that experience and youth category that Nash was talking about before, but I reckon he had a great season. He finished with 26 goals, 6. So he was a really consistent goal kicker, an accurate goal kicker. And what impressed me most was we all appreciate the great work that he does on the outside and the finishing, but was going home and watching the replays and seeing the work that he did on the inside. And I thought he was really good with that, particularly on the weekend. He looked like he was busting a gut to burst out of packs and try and create something. So, I reckon he had a super year and can't wait to see more of him next year, fitter and with another pre-season into him.
His contested possession to uncontested possession ratio. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit stats nerdy here, but he left everybody else on the side for dead, including Clayton Oliver. So he had 236 contested possessions to the year, versus 188.
Wow, yeah,
that's the sort of figures that you see from the likes of Paddy Dangerfield and those really elite players.
Well, are you? Go ahead.
I was just going to give him a pat on the back for that. Really, look, he's one player that you just know is going to make something happen when he's near the ball. Hurt factor is through the roof.
Are you familiar with the AFL? Because you said you're a stats nerd. The official AFL player ratings. They do sort of each week the team of the year based on the stats. And I saw the one today, as at round 23, the team of the year, and Christian Petracca's on the half-forward line. The only Melbourne player represented, I think. So do you know anything more about that and how that's...
I haven't looked too closely into it, to be honest, no. But
maybe it's done by position or something like that, and in that position he's the leader in whatever stats that they.
I don't know. I don't know. Sorry.
He's in good company. The team's an amazing team. So only Melbourne player to make that team. So
yep, needs to be able to spend more time in the middle, but I'm quite prepared to be patient for that.
Yep.
He's been building a tank and so forth, and he's already spending more time in the middle, sort of now than he was this time last year. So. Yeah, very, very bullish. Excellent year, and I'm very pleased that we've got him. He's kind of what I hoped Cole Sylvia would be back in the day.
Yep.
He looks like he is the player I thought Cole Sylvia would be.
Yep, I wholeheartedly agree. So we'll move on. Number 6, Jordan Lewis.
I was happy enough with this season. I do get concerned that he gets a bit more credit than deserved. People talk about on-field leadership and stuff, and I'm just not sure how you can judge that from unless you're standing there on the field next to him. But no, look, clearly a player who's at the back end of his career, and he's slowing down. That being said, he was never, lightning fast to begin with. But if we can get another year out of him next year like this year, I think it'll be a win for us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. You can't quantify that experience that he brings, and hopefully he is imparting some of his wisdom to the players around him, providing that leadership. But unless you're on the field, you can't really, you can't really tell how much of an effect that has. But hopefully it is having an effect. Look, we need a couple of experienced heads around the club. There's no doubt about that, and hopefully it's working.
Yeah, 55 made a point, I think in the Jordan Lewis thread, or it might have been elsewhere on the board today, that the situation on the weekend against Collingwood was exactly the time that we needed someone like Lewis for his experience to stand up and count and influence others. And unfortunately, on the weekend, it didn't work, did it?
Yep.
Yeah. Just to at risk of repeating my own post, I replied to that particular post, and the question is, how much do you expect one person?
Yeah, I agree.
To influence, an outcome like that when the whole team capitulated.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
But,
Yep.
You can lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink.
Yeah, exactly.
And all right, we'll move on. Next guy, certainly missed him on the weekend. I don't know. I'd love a team of 22 Jack Vineys. Gives it his all. Yeah, but I don't know what more you can say. If you could bottle.
We miss him when he's not playing.
Yes,
that's my comment.
Yeah, me too. I don't think he's the best player in the league, but I would love to have 22 of him. I don't know if that makes sense, but
would we have won on the weekend if Viney had been playing?
Not necessarily, but I would have liked to have him last week. The week before.
And the other question is, did he come back too early from the first foot injury?
Depends if they're related or not.
Thus creating the second one, which, again, we don't know, of course. So.
I'm not a doctor. I have no idea. But if we didn't bring him back, would we have won? He came back for the Port game, I think. Would we have won that? I don't know. He was quite good in the middle. Who knows? All these questions cannot be
had a bit
answered.
of an injury-riddled year, Jack.
Yes.
He started slowly.
He did start slow.
Thanks to injury, and he finished slowly thanks to injury too. But was certainly very good in the middle. And you look at like the West Coast game in particular, and the reason for his captaincy was clear.
Missed a lot of game time in that game as well, yet still had close to 40 possessions. Can't say much more about him than that because he's a champ. The next guy, not sure whether we'll be talking about him next year, Jack Trengove. What's the status on his contract with the club? Does he have another
Don't know
contract?
about his contract status, but he's done.
Yeah. I think he had those games and,
I'm a bit disappointed you glossed over Heretier Lumumba there, Andy. But no, we'll all right. But
he's not still on our list, is he?
He is, isn't he? Oh, anyway, I don't know. But Trengove, I think with Trengove, we were all waiting for the fairy tale ending, and it didn't come. It's a shame.
Yeah. No, look, I wanted when he came back in the team, we were, we said on this podcast, we wanted him to succeed, and I don't think there is a Melbourne supporter out there that didn't want to see him succeed. But although having said that, I I wasn't surprised when it didn't come to fruition. I think the game's passed him by, unfortunately. But,
very unlucky, but we'll always be appreciated by the Melbourne faithful for the service he gave during a very difficult time. So can leave with his head held high, I think. I would have thought.
Yeah,
and it's good that he got to experience that appreciation when he did play, because the members certainly let him know the esteem that he was held in. So it's good that, in a way, he did get a bit of a send-off.
If anyone else wants to join the conversation, you can perhaps join us in this impromptu player rating, 0390163666, 0390163666, or Demonland 31. Moving on to Angus Brayshaw, number 10. Who wants to tackle that one?
Look, he was struggled early, I thought. Looked really out of sorts in the opening couple of rounds. Obviously missed most of the season from then on.
Yep.
He played 3 games at the end. His first 2 were really good.
Yep.
Reminded us of why he was so highly rated, I guess, and it was really good to see him able to deliver that. I thought he was another one. He had plenty of friends, but he was poor in the last game.
Yeah.
Couldn't seem to pick up the ball. Like, it just, I saw him fumble it a number of times, which was pretty awful to see. He's probably nervous and all that sort of, pressure of knowing what's on the line and stuff. But it's another one of those last things we saw is what we remember cases. So, but I'm happy with how he finished his season, notwithstanding that last poor game.
You mentioned fumbled a few times, and then you said failed to perform, sort of on the maybe a bit nervous. And this is a point that I wanted to sort of bring up. We were on the big stage. We had 2 times this year where we were sort of on the big stage, with all eyes sort of upon us. One of them was the Friday night game against Sydney. We don't get many Friday night games, and that's obviously when you've got a lot of eyes on the team. And then this game, being a win and make the finals, and we sort of failed to perform, in both games. I don't know. Is that something to worry about? When we got sort of, not that we had expectation in the Sydney game, but it was a pretty important game, being on the big stage. That was this.
Yeah, but that was the culmination of all the 6-day breaks, and was in the middle of the injury curse. Yeah. So I'd write that Sydney game off altogether for those reasons.
Yeah, I was more so. I was just saying we had 2 games on the big stage in front of the whole wider AFL community, and we fluffed both of them. We'll move on. That was just something I wanted to bring up.
Arguably we have 3, don't we? Queen's birthday.
Oh, yes.
Also,
yep.
The big stage in front of everyone. We got that one right.
That's true. We did get that one right. That was a good one to get right. Just speaking of Queen's birthday, you see Collingwood have requested to play us in round 1 this year. They want to make that a big game as well.
Beats the Bears on a Sunday afternoon, which is what we usually get for an opening fixture, isn't it? Yeah. So I'd be more than happy to have that on Queen's birthday. Yeah. Let them have the home game in round 1. So bring it on. Yeah,
I'm quite happy with that too. If we can have a big game, it's all what you sort of look there every year. Hawthorn, Geelong sort of have their thing. Carlton, Richmond. Be good to have sort of a big game to open the round. It's good to. Like you said, rather than play the Bears or whatever they're called these days on a Sunday with 10,000 people there, it'd be good to get a bumper crowd at an opening match. So, I'm all for that. Number 11, Maxi Gawn. Could almost put an asterisk on that name. But then I guess we've also got to talk about his form once he came back from injury. Who wants to tackle Big Maxi?
Well, I thought he was woeful after he came back from injury. He played. I don't really know what else to add to that. He looked like he'd suddenly forgotten how to mark the ball. Like when he's playing his best, he takes grabs. Sort of went back to his old, that Geelong game where he broke out a couple of years ago. Sort of pre that, he'd get into the right spot and look like he might mark it, and then not mark it. It was a really disappointing back half of the season, and I hope he has a better one next year.
Do you think? Do you think the being out of the game for so long, had an effect? I guess it has to. You'd say, but
look, I think you got to give him some credit, and he did say when he returned that he was struggling. He actually said in one of the comments that he struggled with the physicality a bit because he'd sort of gotten unused to being used as a battering ram.
Yep.
But you got to, he played a lot of games in the back half of the season. He had long enough to get going, I thought, and didn't.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, I think George on the outer. No one really played well this last game, but sort of compared his marking stats this week to his opponent, and even Mason Cox sort of outmarked him in amount of grabs taken. So, yep, let's hope for a good pre-season and a better year next year for Maxi.
Yep.
Next one. Dom Tyson.
Oh, who wants to touch this controversial player?
I thought his kicking, particularly in this game, was absolutely woeful, and it's sort of been a bit of a staple of his game. I don't know what it is. It's either he doesn't get a kick off quick enough and gets caught, or he kicks it and he butchers it. I have been really disappointed with Dom, and you look at what we gave up to bring him to the club, and I know we also got Salem out of it and all that, but it really doesn't do that Kelly, Tyson, Salem, whatever you want to call it, any justice when you see some of those disposals on the weekend.
I think I don't recall where it came from, whether it was Jason Taylor or it was Ruse, or someone said that we wouldn't have taken Kelly anyway. So that's probably it's a null argument, that one. I don't know who we would have taken instead.
That's the next question. Who would we have taken?
But it's all coulda, woulda, shoulda.
It's a moot point.
Yep. Tyson, I talked before about hurt factor with Petrarca. And his Petrarca's hurt factor is through the roof. Dom's is low. He gets a lot of the ball. Doesn't kill the opposition with it enough. Doesn't kick enough goals. Need more out of him.
Yeah, I think that with Dom, it boils down. He's got his own thread. Dom Tyson, yes or no, and opinions sort of divided there. But whether you're on one side of the fence or another, if you look back at the year that he had in 2014, he hasn't gone anywhere near towards reproducing the kind of footy that he played that year. He's quite a fair way off it. Now, part of that's been due to injury, but he's also had more than enough time on the park, and we just don't see his 2014 form often enough. It's actually quite rare to be truthful about it.
Yeah, I was going to mention.
I don't know what the future holds for him.
I was going to mention 2014 when you were talking about not kicking enough goals, because he did in that year. I think he often hit the scoreboard. But yep. And Clint Biscuit in the chat room has said that Billings, Ruse had said that it would have been Billings. So there you go.
Yeah. 16 goals he kicked in 2014, and then in the following year 6, the following year 11, and only 5 this year. Yeah. So
16 is the midfielder. That's
well short of the mark.
Yeah. Well, there's not much more you can say about that. I think that speaks for itself. Probably don't even need to talk about this guy because we talk about him every single week, Clayton Oliver.
Can I just read some of his raw numbers, which came from the AFL site?
I thought you were going to read him a poem or something.
I'm still writing that. He led the league in handballs. He was second for contested possessions, fifth in total disposals, eighth in average disposals, 10th in clearances, and 11th in tackles. He finished with a disposal efficiency of 77.1%, which ranked him second among the top 10 ball winners and fourth in the top 20. So,
and not an All-Australian player with all that.
Yeah.
Something's going on.
Those numbers are just through the roof, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're just superb, no matter which way you look at them.
Second year in the game, and just turned 20. So,
Yep. No, star in the making. Love him.
Yep. Also love the next guy. We probably don't need to talk about him either. Michael Hibbert. Don't need to talk about him. All Australian. That's all you need to know. Number 15. Probably need to talk about this guy, Billy Stretch. Disappointing year, you would say. Didn't sort of take his opportunities when he got them. I'm a fan of him when he's playing well, but he didn't take his opportunities. So Casey is for him at the moment, and he'll work his way back if he doesn't get used as trade bait in some Jake Lever thing. But I don't think contracts matter anyway these days. But
and I doubt very much whether Billy Stretch is going to land us Jake Lever.
No matter who else
we stack in with that. You can throw in 100 Nibblers and 10 Matt Joneses.
Well, it looks like, from all reports, we're going to have a good stab at Lever, and we're going to probably have to throw in some players as well as a high draft pick, most likely our first. So, and I must say, Adelaide will play hard ball. They're not going to just give anyone away. You can see what they did with the Gibbs thing last year as well. They're going to play hard ball, so might have to throw in a few kitchen sinks.
And the bloke next to Billy Stretch that sharing the next locker along, number 16, didn't have a particularly good year either.
What do we say there, Rabin?
Kent he's really at a crossroads, I think. He got notwithstanding getting injured, he'd been passed by Harms, Neil Bullen, Hannon, Melksham.
Yep, all of them.
I reckon he's got to lift. He's got to improve. He's got to stop having those games where he touches the ball 5 times. If he hadn't have been the week when he got injured, if he hadn't have been injured, he would have been dropped that week because he'd been hopeless right up until his injury. If he wants to have an AFL career, I think he needs to.
Wasn't one of the issues as well that he wasn't no forward pressure, no tackling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was a big issue.
Yep. And when you look at the names I said, Harms, Neil Bullen, Hannon, Melksham, that's something that they all do.
Yep, I agree. So, he might be out the door because you think they're going to have to. I mean, I probably won't talk to listings now, but they're going to probably have to delist some players, wouldn't you think? There's usually a bit of a turnover. Do you think his name is he'll get another crack, or he could be gone?
Not sure if he's contracted, and that they very rarely delist players who are contracted unless they've played up or it looks like they've got no hope of returning from injury or whatever. I have a feeling he might have a contract to his name, so he could be safe, but. He's definitely expendable. Like if there was offers on the table, I think the club would be remiss not to look at them.
All right, so moving on, the next player I'm pretty sure doesn't have a contract at the moment, or won't at the end of the year, Sam Frost. is that true? I thought I heard somewhere that put contracts on hold or whatever. Look, I don't know what happened with Sam Frost. I was happy with him for most of the year. Seems that he fell out of favour, and looks like he might be used in some trade bait at the end of the year.
To me, he has the attributes to be a really good player. He's tall, he's strong, he's fast.
Quick, yeah.
Really fast, but I don't know. He just doesn't. To me, he doesn't seem to bring it all together often enough. He goes a bit on those mad headless chook dashes up the ground that result in kicking it to nobody. A little bit like Jaden Hunt, who we'll get to, I guess.
Yep.
But I'm not in love with Frost as a player, I've got to say. And if he's required to be spent in order to get lever, I would not say no.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. If it's it's not going to be a straight swap, but if he's, as you said, if he's required to be a blood sacrifice, then game on.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jake Melksham. There would have been a number of people who weren't enamoured with him early on in the year. Not one of them. I sort of liked him for some reason, and I'm wrapped with the way he ended up the year. I think turned into one of our better forward players, and definitely a guy who can kick a clutch goal, and proved it a number of times.
Well, he finished with 21 goals, 6. So not only did he kick them, but he was pretty accurate along the way too. So definitely. And there isn't this award at the BNF, but if there was a most improved, he'd win it for sure, because his second half of the year was excellent, and I think it'll probably see him finish in the top 10 in the BNF. I would have thought will make a late flurry.
Yep, really pleasing back half of the year.
Yeah, he did all right in the Demonland Player of the Year. So, good luck for him. Mitch Hannon definitely had a very exciting start to the year, but, sort of is a bit of a bid player. I think someone on the board sort of said he's got to do more than, 5 minutes of footy, How many goals did he kick? Do you have stats on him?
Let's find out.
What did you think, Nasher? Good addition to the team, but I think
I finished with 22 goals, 10.
Yep.
So
I was busy looking up the goals as well. It's a bit of redundancy going on there. Look. It's year one, so it was a great start. I think. I think that the comment that he needs to be involved for longer periods of the game is also spot on.
Yep.
But he's quick. He tackles. He can take a mark. He's a really good mark for his size. And good first year. Good solid first year, I would say.
Troy Chaplin on this podcast, Troy Chaplin, assistant coach of the D's, did say that he's coming off pre-season shoulder. Well, he had surgery, I think, at the end of last year, and they said as he gets a bit more confidence, you'll see he'll start taking a lot more of those big grabs, and can take a good grab.
And quick to get boot the ball too.
Yes.
Some of those goals were, if you blinked, you missed them.
Yeah. Number 20, Colin Garland, probably may have seen the end. That knee injury probably spelt the end of his career. But if he does play on, all the best. I wish him the best of luck. But I don't know if he's in the equation, the coaching equation. But we'll see.
Yep.
Cam Peterson.
He should get like the if there was a fans award or like a heroes award, at the BNF, it'd go to Peterson, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
He was our knight in shining armour this year.
Yeah.
And good luck to him. And it's a bit telling, I think, that probably the first act that we remember that he ever committed at the club early on was ducking his head in a contest, and one of the final acts that he committed for the year, I think it was last week against Brisbane, was backing back into that contest in the back line where he got absolutely crunched. So his transition from when he got to the club to where he is now has just been enormous, and his effort was rewarded with a great year.
He did get dropped, though. It is worth mentioning. Yep. And he doesn't seem to have anything in between brilliant or awful. Like he had a couple after Hogan returned, and like once Hogan and Max and so forth were in the side, and he was no longer required as the first ruck or the first forward. He had a period where he did nothing. He added nothing at all to the side. So, look, I mean, I've made no secret that over the last year that I'm not as bullish on him as many others are. But he did have a fantastic year. He stood up a number of times when we really needed him to, and he's been rewarded with another year on the list. But I don't think we should get too carried away. I think he's still to me spare parts. I know that's probably harsh, but that's where I see him.
Yeah, I thought he struggled a little bit when he didn't have a role to play, as you mentioned, when sort of Hogan and Maxi came back in the team. And I thought whenever Jesse was in there, he really didn't play well, except for there was one game where they were both in the team and he did, and it might have been the Brisbane game.
The Brisbane game, round Purple Patch in round 21-22, so the Saints game and the Brisbane game, he was outstanding, and I give him full credit for that. Yep.
Vandenberg, nothing much to say. He was injured for the entire year, so I heard him speak at a function before a game, and he's raring to go. He just wants to get back on the training field once he can, and let's hope he...
Fingers crossed.
Yep, because if he has he's a very injury-prone player, and I would say if he has another injury-prone year, that's probably the end of his career. So good luck to him for next year. Number 23, Bernie Vince.
I thought he had a poor year.
Yeah, so did I. His disposal at times is awful for a guy who's got a lot of skill. That I think has a lot of skill.
Good chance he'll get a tap on the shoulder this year. Yeah.
If
he does get another year, it'll be half spent at Casey, I expect. And he made a comment that he would be happy, if the club were to offer him another contract, he'd be quite happy to play at Casey if needed and stuff, which I think is admirable. But it's touch and go, and I think if we are short on players to move on, because you've got to keep your list churning, he could be in trouble.
I don't know. I still think I would like to see him a little bit in the forward line. I don't think many people ever agree with me when I say that, and maybe he's not quick enough for it on the half forward flank, but I think he can offer more kicking for goal than he does kicking out a goal.
Even his goal kicking deserted him a bit this year.
That problem might have cost us as well.
And I don't think he can bring enough pressure and pace in the forward line to be able to play the defensive side of that role. So I sort of partly agree with what you're saying, but there are issues with it too.
Yep.
And I think we'll be in a good spot if he is struggling to make the 22 next year.
Yes, I agree.
That'll be a good sign.
Next player as well might be at a crossroads in his career. Had a few chances, Jay Kennedy Harris at number 24, and I don't think took those chances when he got them.
Played one or two one good game and one okay game in the middle, and maybe that's more the role for him rather than the half forward or small forward role that he's played before. But it didn't set the world alight. No.
To me, something seemed to change mid-year. He it was almost like a flick of the light switch. He started getting 40 plus in the VFL every week.
Yes.
Really seemed to turn it on at that level. I don't know whether he was told to, shape up or because, it was a out of contract year. So he may have been told that if he didn't get on with it, he was going to be gone, which I know our footy department have been known to tell people that before. Yeah, so if he can turn that 40 plus in the VFL to 25, decent kicks in the AFL, there's a spot in the midfield for him, but really needs to be able to start translating that VFL form into AFL form now. That's the challenge. We saw Neil Bullen do it, between last year in the VFL to this year in the AFL. So not a lost cause yet for mine.
There must be such a big gap between VFL to AFL because, 40 possessions, then translating into just a handful of touches some weeks. It's all the best for him next year. Now, this player, probably, we said it before.
Plugger.
Tom McDonald, forward, back, back, forward. Where do you play him? And I guess he's going to get criticism no matter where he plays. I like him when he doesn't have some brain fades. I think he's good defensively, as in, one-on-one defensively. He can take a great mark. He's kicking out of defence. I often have my, mouth, heart in my mouth when he kicks. But did prove to me that he can play forward and, it was a dead-eye straight kick for goal.
23 goals, 7 he finished with. So, good return.
For considering that he played half the season forward, that's an excellent return. Has a future as a forward if we need him as a forward. I just play him where you need to. Has his moments. He was terrible in that last game, and that just breaks my heart because I'm a bit of an underdog, a bit of a fan of the underdog, and he gets bagged a bit on the site, and I try to stick up for him, but it's pretty hard when he turns in performances like that every now and again, isn't it?
I feel sorry for him because he did have a great year, and yet virtually his last kick of the season was just, an absolute train wreck. But I can't remember which game it was, but he was on the couch one night a couple of years back. I think it might have been. It was after a big game and we'd lost, and he was absolutely filthy. It might have been against Collingwood, and I think the game where Cloak probably kicked his last bag against us. And so it was a Monday, and he had to go on telly a few hours later, and he was just filthy with himself and so dirty on TV. And they were the boys on the couch were actually laughing at him that he couldn't sort of break out of it and give a proper interview. So he'd be absolutely kicking himself after the weekend and those mistakes which came at the end. So, feel a bit sorry for Tom that it finished that way after such a great season. Yep,
agree.
Look, there's so many people that dislike, that don't want him in the team. I don't get it. Do they have a replacement that they'd like to see replace him at the moment? Because it seems that him and his brother cop it and people want them out. But you take them out of the team, we've got no defence.
Well, it's just so versatile. We've found this year that, not only can he go forward, but he can go in the ruck and on the ball as well. So why you'd want to get rid of him now
I don't get it.
Is beyond me.
It's irrational, I think. It's just emotion speaking.
Yep.
Sam
Wiedemann. Sam Wiedemann. He's not ready yet. I think that he'll get there, but clearly the games he's played, he seemed a bit out of his depth. So, your thoughts?
I'm bullish. I'm still confident he'll be a player.
Yeah, I think so too. Just
yep.
I don't think he's ready yet. But
Yep, no, that's right. I mean, he's still built like a weed, really. Yeah, really skinny. Gets lots of time, in my opinion.
Yep. I'm actually. I was happy early on. I would have been happy if they just kept on playing him a little bit, but they obviously didn't want to do that.
Nothing.
It was good to see him.
More
good to see him tear a couple of games apart in the VFL.
Yep.
Yeah, that game where he kicked, was it 5 goals or 6 goals? And as a marking forward, I think that's really seemed to give him confidence.
Nothing irritates me more than people writing him off as Lucas Cook number 2
No, he's definitely
on Demonland. So if you're one of those people, then you're listening, pull yourself into line.
If you are one of those people, why don't you give us a call, 039016 3666 9016 3666. We had a few people who said they would like to call in, so give us a call, or Demonland31 on Skype. Liam Hewlett, number 27. We don't know much about him. Haven't seen much.
Probably, from what I read, didn't progress as much this year as perhaps people might have thought. I think he spent a bit of time in defence, so picking up extra skills down back to add to what he knows from being up forward. But certainly not. Certainly not knocking on the door at this stage.
Spent a bit of time in the Casey Development League, I believe, as well. I'm not a Casey watcher. I live way too far away for that. But I can only go by what people say, and it sounds like he didn't kick on. Expect it'll be one of the easier decisions the footy department have to make this year, to be honest.
Yep.
Well, given where Casey is located, you're actually closer to Casey than you are to the MCG. So
excellent.
So Oscar McDonald.
I'm a fan. I don't know why he gets bagged like he does.
I think there was a big improvement this year on last year, but that's expected. I think sometimes he struggles one-on-one with a bigger body at the moment, and hopefully as he builds up and sort of gets more of that Tom physique, he'll start matching it with some of the bigger bodies. So I think he gets sort of thrown around.
As far as key defenders go, he is an infant still.
Yeah.
And look, he started to mark this year. I saw a lot more of him marking the ball, particularly in the later half of the year when he was sort of settled in there. Does I like him. I think he had a good year and very pleased with his progress.
I think with him,
I hope Steve the Man Jordan is listening to this cast.
And I completely agree with Nasher. I reckon he had a good year of development. He's improved significantly or enough on where he was last year, and will just get better as he grows in his body and gets more experience under his belt. But well on track for me. Yeah,
like it or not, the coaching staff have obviously earmarked him as being one of the team, and it was quite evident, I think, late last year and this year that was the way they were going to go over even Colin Garland and when Lyndon Dunn was in the team as well. So like it or not, he's there to stay, and he definitely did improve, and as he sort of develops, let's hope that upward trajectory. 29, Jaden Hunt. Fan favourite, obviously, but, there's some frustrating things that he sometimes does. But it's so exciting when he has that burst of speed off the half-back. I just like him to lower his eyes. And I think he did a couple of times where he done a short pass and sort of hit someone. But, oftentimes the kicks went a bit wayward.
Is he? Yeah, this is probably something more for the people who spend more time watching at the ground, because on TV all you see is him running through the ground and then suddenly the other team has the ball. Is his play too fast for our forwards? I don't understand why what happens. I don't think he has poor skills.
No.
So I'm not. But yeah, if we can find out what the magic recipe is for making him kick the ball to Melbourne players.
I sometimes think he's running too fast. That he just takes this burst of speed, and because he's going too fast, it sometimes causes him to do that, to kick like that. Because I think when you're going full pelt, it's very hard to sort of steady and kick it where you want it to go.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. I think it's also a structural issue because it's not just Jaden, but there are plenty of times where we're moving the ball forward with pace and there's just nothing in the forward 50. Yep. And that's happened to him quite a bit, and he ends up spraying his kicks. Now, part of it is a little bit of poor disposal and not lowering their eyes, but part of it is the way we're set up further afield. So, I think, given Jesse was out most of the year and Jack was out for bits and pieces, we had this sort of makeshift forward line. If we can spend a bit more time playing together, then hopefully part of that gets eradicated and we set up properly. You
do see good teams have that issue sometimes as well, but they're able to hold the ball up. So for whatever, they'll draw a hop towards, wait for as long as they can to handball off to someone else who's running past or whatever. He doesn't seem to have that element in his game at the moment. He just seems to only know how to run. Perhaps it'll come with maturity.
Moving on, Alex Neil-Bullen definitely had a much improved year and was rewarded with a contract extension for 2 years. I thought he had a pretty good year. Yeah,
I think he had a good year too. Another butcher though, isn't he? Really, needs to iron that aspect out of his game. But really, it was really good to see him step up. Was involved for most of the year. Didn't have too many really quiet games. Tackles and does all the pressure stuff. I like that aspect. Knows how to find the goals. But that kicking needs a bit of work.
Yeah, I don't know how much better he'll get. As you say, his defensive stuff is very good and he's very good at finding space in the forward line. But his finishing needs a lot of work and he lacks composure, I think. And I don't know how he goes in those high pressure situations for mine.
You ready for the next one? Thomas Bugg. I like him. I didn't like his some of the way it ended this year, particularly with the cheap shot. But I liked his...
To me, it wasn't just the cheap shot for me. It was the whole package of that game. He did what he did, and not only did he do what he did, but not only did he do what he did, I'll try and speak English, but he dropped his bundle for the rest of the game. He went completely into his shell. It's like I've never seen such a clear case of a player being psyched out in a game of football, and to me that makes him hard to pick in the future.
That was one game, one brain fade. Looking past that game, if you can, I like some of the things he did. He had that one game a couple, that sort of sequence of games where I think he kicked 7 points in a row for us, but he was still getting the ball. He was taking marks, having shots at goal. That's a good thing. He played well in that win against Adelaide over there. He had a sort of a good patch in the middle of the year. And
but the combination of Neil-Bullen, Harms and Hannon have all moved ahead of him in in that sort of half-forward role, and Melksham's now in there too. So Bugs right at the back of the queue for mine.
A depth player, you would say, still. If we have a couple of injuries and he keeps that form up, it's handy player to have who can kick goals if he kicks straight. But meaning he's getting the ball, so. All right, moving on. Jake Spencer. Where to now for Jake Spencer? I thought it was quite telling when was Max still out. He was available to play, but couldn't get the game on above our makeshift ruckman.
He's got to move on now, doesn't he? I've supported his retention all the way up until now, but the writing's on the wall. When they were picking Pedersen ahead of him, he must have been going, "Why am I still at this club?" It's that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the F do I have to do?
We'll find a home elsewhere, and we wish him luck.
Well, can we?
Correct. Yep.
What do we do? Can we afford to? We've got Maxi. Who have we got in the? Which one of the boys is the ruckman in the twos? I think we've got
Mitch.
We've got Mitch King, and is that Lachlan Filipovic? I think he's a.
The flip.
Yeah, is he a rookie listed player or?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So I think moving Spencer on, you would be light next year, and we would have to find. Well, we would probably have to see what experienced rucks are out there. Probably should have been done last year, to be honest. But I think the likes of King would benefit from Spencer moving on, probably because it would mean more time as the first ruck at Casey.
Yep, exactly.
The problem the perennial problem with rucks is you've only got room for 3 first rucks in your whole list, and that's if you've got someone as the first ruck in the development league, which is a long way off AFL standard. So it's really hard for your rucks to get practice, particularly if you've got an almost AFL grade ruckman in your side as your spare like Spencer. So I think it's time to move him on and see what else we can develop.
Yep. So then that covers Mitch King, which is the next one. So if Spencer moves on, that'll benefit Mitch King. So looking forward to seeing more of him because if he can play, then bring it on. Number 35, Ben Kennedy. You'd have to say it's almost the end of the road for him. I liked him when he was in the team, but obviously he's not in the future.
0 games in the AFL. I think that tells the story.
Yep. Don't need to talk more about that. Number 36, Jeffrey Garlett, probably his best year at the club, if not his best in his entire career. Last, couple of weeks probably let him down a little bit, and probably a reason he's not in the All-Australian team, but was, 3/4 of the way through the year, I reckon he was probably not a shoo-in for All-Australian, but definitely one of the best small forwards in the league.
It's funny, something funny happened at the halfway mark. I made a post in mid-May. Well, Destroy All created a thread in mid-May saying Jeff Garlett, give him some love. And at that point of the season, which is only about 6 or 7 weeks in, he had 20 goals, 6. And he finished with 42 goals, 28. So he's then kicked 22-22.
Wow.
From about round 7 or 8 on. So is going from sort of, close to 80% accuracy to 50. So a huge drop-off in his accuracy, and particularly set shots. So that was disappointing. But I reckon he had a really good year, and we know that there were some extenuating circumstances at the end for him. He had a family bereavement, so that might have thrown him off his game. But I think he was still one of the better players on the weekend. His pressure was good. Unfortunately, he missed 2 absolute sitters, including what would have been our opening goal of the game, when he had a lot more time to get that snap off, and then he missed a sitter of a set shot in the last quarter.
Those misses are why he doesn't get talked about in the same vein as the likes of Betts and so forth, because that's just what sets him. That's that's what brings him down a peg. But I agree that he had a fantastic season, and out of the blue for me, I had very low expectations. I don't know why. Basically, we had a pretty poor year last year, but I wouldn't quite say I couldn't be happier, but very impressed with the season, and I hope he has another one like that next year.
Yep.
Dion Johnston, we haven't seen much of him. I thought we were going to see a lot more of him, particularly when he was given a pre-season game early on. I thought we'd see a lot more of him, but didn't really even get much game time there. Or I think he did, but he sort of played in the forward pocket, didn't really do much. So, yep, not much to say. We haven't really seen what he can do.
I know nothing.
Yeah.
No, supposedly he's a good tackler and good with defensive stuff.
He's
so
a boxing background, so yeah.
Yep.
Bring it on next year. Do we need to talk about Neville Jetta? That hasn't been said already about the guy.
Unlucky to miss out tonight.
Yeah.
I would just like to fess up here. I was one of those who thought, when looking at the side on paper at the before the season started, that he might struggle to hold his spot. I'm sure there was some fantastic logic to it at the time. I can't remember what it was now. I didn't think he had another level to go to, but he found one. He's been amazing. Yep.
There was logic to it because there were some, even in the football department, who, not that they don't rate Jetta or didn't rate Jetta, but I think some in the football department thought that Joel Smith might replace him this year.
Right.
Now, as it turns out, Smith was injured for most of the year, so that was never going to come to fruition. But even if Smith had a good year and managed to play in the senior side, it wouldn't have been at Jetta's expense because from round one, he was just sensational. So he was never going to leave the team. But I think there was rationale behind it at the start of the year. But anyone who had any doubts has had them well and truly dispelled by now.
Mm-hmm. Yep, agree.
Pat McKenna was injured a bit, I've heard, so I don't know anything about the guy. Was he the guy that came from GWS?
Yes.
Yep.
Don't know anything.
Didn't get on the park at all, did he? I don't think.
I don't know.
No,
I know
or barely.
Hamstring issues and other issues. So we'll look out for him next year. But I dare say he'll probably start in the twos, and we'll see where he goes from there. Josh Wagner, frustrating year. Sort of had some glimpses of some good things, but then some things that were quite unforgettable.
How many ball butchers can you have in one side? I guess that's the question.
Yeah. And unfortunately, to bring into the same conversation is the next guy on the list, James Harms, who's also not necessarily a butcher, but
he goes missing.
Not a great user of the footy.
I'm a James Harms fan.
Yeah, I am too.
He really even. He seems to be have presence even when we're not going well, which I think is a good attribute to have. I wouldn't describe him as one who goes missing at all. He's one who loves to try and use his pace. He's strong around the ball. He can take a good mark. Can kick goals. Ball use is not always perfect, but
if you could only have one of
year.
Nibbler or Harms in the side, who would you go for? Harms.
I would go for Harms, but I would definitely go for Harms.
Me too.
Yep.
Me too.
Yep.
I thought he finished the year really well, James Harms. Not necessarily the game on the weekend. No one was really great on the weekend, but I thought, in the weeks before that, he was probably in the best form of his career, James Harms.
Yeah, I think the St Kilda game proved,
Yep.
Showed probably what he can do. and
Yep.
probably had his best game ever. Now the last player is not on this list, but I guess Joel Smith. A lot of big raps on him beginning of the year. Unfortunately, went down, with that injury in the first game, and then when he came back, sort of struggled to find that form that he showed in the preseason. So hopefully, with all that sort of behind him, the injuries, because I think once he came back from injury, I think he got injured again. I can't remember. But yeah, preseason under his belt could hopefully be an important part of that back line. But has to get back on the list first, though, because I don't think he is a listed player. I think he was elevated.
I believe he's been signed. I thought I saw during the year that he'd been signed on the senior list for next year. So
okay,
guaranteed promotion. Yeah.
All right, great, fantastic.
Yep.
No, I liked what I saw of him early on in the year. So, yep, very good. All right, that rounds out the list. So, where to from here? What's your expectations for next year and the off season?
A final or two would be nice next year, please.
Yeah. Look, I think it has to be finals. And we discussed this year whether finals was the barometer for whether there's any improvement. But there was a bit of debate whether finals we wanted to see some improvement, which we did. We won more games. But next year has to be finals. I think anything but making the finals next year is a failure. What do you guys think?
I mean, things can happen as well. Like, what happens if Petrarca and
lots of injuries,
and Oliver both did their knee in the preseason? Things can happen. But yes. I think, all things being equal, finals should be the benchmark for next year for sure. Yep.
Great finding.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement. I was in the finals, not vital this year, even though we should have done it in the end, given where we were. But next year, as Nasher said, barring exceptional circumstances, absolutely, it has to be a bare minimum. Yep.
Now, it's way too far in advance, but if we don't make finals, Demonland's going to go into meltdown, and I'm sure they're going to be baying for blood. So all right. It's way too early. Maybe it's just my MFC SS mindset.
You should say someone
projecting.
About that.
I really should. I think I'm projecting, but yeah. I want finals next year. I'm hungry, and I hope the players are hungry for it because, we need to start paying off. It's got to be some payoff for all this hurt and pain.
Yep, there does.
All right. Anything else, gentlemen, before we wrap things up here?
I think we've said all that can be said. If they're all just words.
Yeah, they are. Exactly. I think this is a good point. This is our, as I said, our season finale of the Demonland podcast. I would like, maybe we'll get together again, maybe after the draft to just discuss maybe the trade and draft period. We'll get together and discuss what's happened. But I just want to thank you guys, Nasher coming in late, and Grapeviney for joining us this season. Disappointing, I know, but let's pick ourselves up off the floor and get ready for a big year next year.
Thank you.
Not ready to pick myself up off the floor just yet. I'm going to stay here and continue my tantrum for a little while longer. Thank you very much.
I've got to say I'm in the same boat. I've hardly even been on the last week. I've just this week I should say. Yeah, head in the sand, just pretend it didn't happen.
Well, I follow a lot of on Facebook. I follow a lot of different footy pages. The Super Coach, the AFL page, all these other whatever. And I must say I've done a lot of scrolling past things this week as soon as I see a footy jumper, particularly one of those finals teams. There's been a lot of scrolling done. My scroll wheel on my mouse is almost broken. Yeah.
Cool.
Can I
parting
send
comment.
out one final message to the Demonland community?
Yes, you have the floor, Grapevining. Go for it.
Use the search engine. You know what? instead of just jumping on and creating a thread because you've just read Mick Warner saying something in the paper or Mark Robinson or God knows where, use the search, see whether it's there, look for existing threads that you can contribute to. Not everyone needs their own personal post-season whinging thread.
Well, I thought that's why we had moderators for, but no, please do use the search engine. Yeah, it would help. Nasher, any parting words?
Just may Essendon and West Coast get absolutely annihilated in the first week of the finals.
And not just them, Adelaide. We didn't talk about them, but I was a bit pissed off at them as well. I'm telling you, they did not take this game seriously. They had sewn up top spot, and you know what? You say teams don't go in to lose. I don't think they were too keen on winning that game.
I agree, and sometimes I honestly wonder why I barrack for them for 3 hours a year. And I'm going to review that commitment going forward.
All right, I think we're going to leave it there. You can find us on iTunes or SoundCloud. Just search for Demonland. Join us again. We'll come back around draft trade period time. But we'll definitely be back next year to follow our beloved Demons. All right. Hope you're all well. Go D's.